At 2 o'clock in the morning, halfway through the Tour de France, Jonas Vingegaard, twice a winner of this race, and at that moment lying second overall, is asleep in his team hotel, and someone knocks on the door. 3 hours later, at 5 a.m, the same thing happens at another hotel to the man in the yellow jersey, Tadej Pogačar. The people knocking are not fans and they are not journalists. They are doping control officers, carrying needles, sample kits, and a piece of paper signed by a judge in Paris. In a few hours, both men will have to race across the Pyrenees. By sunset, one of them will be in an ambulance and out of the Tour. This is the story of who was knocking, what they were looking for, and why the most infamous cheat in the history of sport is calling it a human rights issue. To understand the knock, you need to understand the deal every professional cyclist has already signed. It is called the whereabouts system, and it works like this. Every single day of the year, a rider must tell the testers exactly where they will be for 1 hour, a street address, a hotel, a room number. Miss 3 appointments in a year and it counts as a doping violation. No drugs required. Within that system, testers can turn up unannounced any time between 6 in the morning and 11 at night. Training camp, wedding day, Christmas morning, the doorbell can ring. But between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m, the rules say riders are off limits. Sleep is protected. To break into the night, the anti-doping authorities need something exceptional. In the words of the regulations, serious and specific suspicions, and in France, a judge willing to put a signature on them. On the 18th of July, at the Paris Judicial Court, they got one. So why would anyone need to test a sleeping man? Because of something riders call glow time. Every banned substance, once it enters the body, glows. It can be detected in blood or urine for a limited window. For the big old-fashioned doses of the 1990s, that window was days. But modern doping does not use big doses. It uses microdoses, tiny injections of EPO or growth hormone small enough to slip beneath the radar of the biological passport, large enough over a third week of a Grand Tour to matter. And some of those microdoses glow for only a few hours. Now do the maths on the protected night. A rider who injects at 1 minute past 11 cannot be touched until 6 a.m. And by then, 7 hours have passed and the glow is gone. The test comes back clean because the schedule guaranteed it would. Riders have a dark joke about this. A test you can predict is not a drugs test. It is an intelligence test. If the testers only ever knock when you expect them, the only rider who fails is a rider who cannot count. The 2 a.m. knock exists to break that arithmetic, to make every hour of the night a possible testing hour so that no injection, however small, is ever safely timed. And if that sounds paranoid, remember what this sport is recovering from. Because cycling did not invent the nighttime raid, the police did. 1998, days before the Tour, a team helper named Willy Vogt is stopped at the French border in a car carrying nearly 400 doses of EPO, growth hormone, and testosterone. Mid-race, police raid team hotels at night, riders sit down in the road in protest. An entire team is thrown out of the Tour. The sport promised it would clean itself up. What followed instead was the most sophisticated doping operation sport has ever seen. Lance Armstrong won the 1999 Tour before a test for EPO even existed. For 7 straight Julys, he stood on the top step in Paris, repeating the same shield of a sentence. "I've never failed a drugs test." It was true. It meant nothing. The tests were beatable, the schedule was known, and the deliveries came by motorbike. It took until 2008 for the biological passport, long-term tracking of every rider's blood, to arrive, and until 2012 for 1,000 pages of sworn testimony to do what a decade of clean tests never could. Every rule that woke Pogačar in July was written because of what men like Armstrong did in the dark. Which brings us to the strangest scene in this whole story. Because when news of the night tests broke, one voice rose above the peloton's grumbling to declare the whole thing an outrage. Beyond the line, a matter of human rights. Not a rider, not a team boss. Lance Armstrong. On his own podcast, the man whose 7 stolen tours are the reason the testers exist at all, listen to this.
This is the hardest sporting event in the world. Sleep is essential. Now, obviously, nobody here is going to be a proponent of not having controls. But this isn't a sporting issue now. 2 a.m. is a human rights issue. I'm speechless. So just ask yourself, okay? The World Cup final is today. What would have happened if you went and knocked on Messi's door at 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
Wimbledon going on a week or so ago. What would have happened if you went and knocked on Sinner's door at 2 a.m.? What would happen? The Open is going on right now. I have it on my screen. What would have happened? What would Scotty Scheffler do if you knocked on his door at 2 a.m.? They would be like, no.
Here is the uncomfortable part. Strip away who said it, and the argument is not stupid. A Grand Tour is a 3-week experiment in survival. Riders burn 6,000 calories a day. Sleep is not a luxury in that world. It is the recovery plan, the hours where the body repairs the damage so it can be damaged again tomorrow. Wake a contender at 2 a.m. and you have not just annoyed him, you have taken something he cannot get back. Remco Evenepoel called the wake-ups inhumane. Vingegaard's teammate Matteo Jorgensen called them a total lack of respect. Even Visma's own boss, who accepted the testing was necessary, said the timing was not ideal. And then there is the part nobody can prove and nobody can unthink. That same Sunday afternoon, the day of the 2 a.m. knock, Jonas Vingegaard, one of the surest descenders of his generation, missed a corner 20 kilometers from the finish. Fractured collarbone, ambulance. The first Grand Tour of his career he has ever failed to finish, gone in a heartbeat on a mountain road. Nobody can say the sleepless night caused that crash. Be honest about that. But listen to what the man in the yellow jersey, the man with the most to gain from his rival's exit, said on camera before the sun had set on stage 15.
Yeah, it got me thinking just before in interview for France TV. Today we had doping control. He had it at 2 in the morning, and got me thinking maybe this is also a reason that one night that your sleep is ruined. Maybe a little bit less concentrated in the descent, and his tour is ruined. Maybe this. I don't blame that, but could be also a little bit connected. So it's just really sad to see him leave.
Now flip the door around, because the testers have an answer to all of this. This was not a rogue squad freelancing in a hotel corridor. The International Testing Agency, independent, running cycling's anti-doping since 2021, went to a judge in Paris and laid out its case, and the judge signed. And it was not a stitch-up of 2 stars. At least 7 teams were visited in the small hours, and 2 nights later, the testers came back in normal hours and took samples from every single one of the 166 riders left in the race. The UCI backed them in writing. Nighttime controls, it said, are reserved for limited and justified circumstances. But they serve an overriding interest, the fight against doping. More than 10 million euros a year goes into collecting, analyzing, and reanalyzing samples. And reanalyzing matters because samples are stored for a decade. A dose that beats today's test can still be caught by a test that has not been invented yet, and the results of that July night, under the rules, we only ever hear about them if someone failed. A year of silence in this system is the sound of a clean tour. So far, silence. So this is the actual choice, and it is harder than either side wants to admit. There is no version of this sport where the night is protected and the testing works. The 7-hour blackout is exactly the size of the hole a microdose needs, but there is also no version where the knocking is free. The price of the 2 a.m. test is paid in the one currency a Grand Tour rider cannot afford: recovery. And it is paid by the innocent every time in advance on the suspicion that somebody, somewhere in the hotel, might be glowing. 20 years ago, this sport's problem was that nobody was watching closely enough. Its problem in 2026 is deciding how much watching the watched can survive, and the man in the yellow jersey now lives at the exact center of that question. The fastest rider of all time, in the most tested body, in world sport, woken at 5 in the morning precisely because he is both. Pogačar rode into Paris a week later and won the Tour by 6.5 minutes, his fifth with the whole sports eyes wide open, every watt public, every mountain timed, every knock answered. That is the deal now, and it is a deal Armstrong's generation never had to sign. Total dominance in exchange for total transparency, even at 2 in the morning. Maybe that is the price of a sport you can finally believe in. Or maybe it is a line that sport should never cross, a violation with a stopwatch. The testers say they will be back. The riders say something has to change. So you tell me, if believing what you watched in July costs a knock on the door at 2 a.m., is it worth it? Leave your answer below.